Greetings, I'm Dr. Jenoch, and in the past 2 years, the intersection between education and technology has increased and intensified, and we have also seen an increased awareness and destigmatization of mental health. There is an intersection of education, technology, and mental health, and this will be discussed in this presentation. I will also make some recommendations for improving mental wellness in education and counseling settings with the use of technology. I am a college and university professor, as well as a mental health counselor who encourages the responsible use of technology. In both the educational and counseling settings, I have observed some trends with technology and will provide some use case examples of my experiences in these settings. So there are several ways in which education and technology are connected. I have listed a few of them here and will discuss mainly the first two in this presentation. Technology is present in our lives and has been present in the physical classroom. What are the implications and outcomes of this presence? I will explore that in the next couple of slides. Online learning has developed over the past few decades and includes a few of these formats. You have asynchronous format, which includes exclusive delivery online with no real-time interaction between the professor and the student. There is the synchronous format, which includes remote delivery of education, but includes regular virtual meetings. So that's similar to having like a Zoom meeting for work. And then the hybrid format includes a combination of online delivery with face-to-face meetings. Technology education is about educating and developing technology skills in students. So these would be classes that are focused on developing specific skills in technology. And then you have EdTech, which is defined here, occupies the intersection where technology and teaching meet. And it is the use of educational tools or software to enhance the delivery of education. So before students enter our classroom, it is important for educators to know these statistics. I'm not going to go through all of them, but overall, almost 80 to 90+% of students have access to technology, use technology or digital devices, and have social media accounts. Students have truly become digital natives where technology is an extension of their identity. 9 hours per day on social media is longer than the average working day, and this is something that we should really consider. So in the classroom, educators have had to include technology in the delivery of instruction, and we have met digital natives in this sense, and this is what's considered sanctioned use of technology. So this is using technology to research stuff in the classroom, to foster interactions between students and discussion. So it's where the instructor, professor says, hey, get online, research this. That's a sanctioned use of technology. One student, Benmar, in 2015, wrote an opinion piece outlining that they wished their educators all used technology to deliver instruction because most of their interesting and fun classes were with professors who used technology. Another way that technology has been present in the classroom is through unsanctioned use of technology. A 2016 study revealed that 20% of students were checking messages, sending texts, checking social media during classroom instruction. So we can ask ourselves, what impact is the presence of technology in the classroom having on students? So I have noticed some trends in this area, and those are increased distraction in face-to-face classes and reduced engagement. When I notice trends, I tend to survey those involved. So I surveyed students and found that their answers confirmed what I was reading in the literature. They have FOMO, fear of missing out. They want to keep up with the latest news and technology, so they feel the need to be engaged often with technology, and that could include when they're in the classroom. Reduced engagement was present in students showing an increased hesitation over the past 4 to 5 years in my classes and in other professors' classes to have discussions during class. questions would be asked and students would really just be silent. They wouldn't express themselves. And so again, I went to the survey mode and asked, well, what's going on? Why are you not engaging in discussions like you used to before? And students revealed that they were afraid of saying the wrong thing in classes and that what they said would come back to them on social media. So the cancel culture was affecting their engagement in the classroom. And this was an interesting thing to learn. Online learning is the other way that education and technology have been connected. This has afforded a great amount of flexibility and has made education accessible for people of various socio-demographic locations. For example, mothers no longer had to worry about childcare in order to attend class or get an education. Someone in their 60s, 70s, or 80s could pursue an education without feeling out of place. I recently saw on LinkedIn, just this past week, there was a post about an 81-year-old mother who just graduated with her bachelor's degree. We're seeing more of these days. So online learning in a way has opened up education and allowed us to accommodate more learning styles because it allowed for flexibility in how education was delivered. We had also switched to a learner-centered approach. And this is meaning that we are meeting the learner where they're at and not just using one model and applying it to everyone. Then March 2020 happened. Online learning, which was implemented at will, which means at the discretion of the institution, became a mandatory format for learning. The world was in crisis mode, and whenever that occurs, there are mental health effects. There was increased anxiety, depression, isolation, and stress. Online learning was new to many of us, and there was no proper instruction or preparation or manual on how to implement it. So educators, parents, students, they all felt that it was a situation that exceeded their resources or capacity and brought about feelings of stress. And as we know, stress can manifest itself in many, many different ways. So some of the trends that I've noticed are that students were developing a sense of learned helplessness. Learned helplessness describes a situation where someone is exposed to an unpleasant stimulus. So in this case, it was online learning, and there was no way out. They could not escape the stimulus. So in order for someone to be educated, which is something they may have enjoyed before, there was only one way to do it, no alternatives. So in situations like this, where the stimulus is prolonged or chronic, or the end is unknown, as it was with the pandemic, the person gives up. And so the term is that they feel helpless about the situation. And this was a feeling that was heard from many students. And this was also observed in students tending to drop out or check out, especially towards the end of semesters. They were no longer engaged because they felt that this learning format was very, very dissonant with what they preferred. So during the pandemic, I was fortunate to be able to provide a synchronous online class. And it was the most successful class that I've had in terms of student engagement and performance. And one tool that I feel has helped with this was the chat function. Now it may seem weird, right? How did the chat function help with student learning? Well, after the classes, I started to read the chat. And I realized that students were engaging and connecting, whether it was about the course content, whether it was something they agreed with, disagreed with, thought it was weird. They were engaging. Or if they were engaging about what was going on in each other's background. So a lot of students had their cameras on and they were going about their day, driving, doing stuff at home, and they were talking about that. And I realized that helped them to build community, which has been one of the biggest criticisms about online learning, is that you can't build community because you can't see each other, you can't interact. None of the students in this class knew each other before. And during the semester, they met face to face several times and they developed friendships. I was really surprised to learn that. Now their work, their presentations, and the things that they submitted for grading was by far, to this date for me, the best work that I've ever graded in my 10+ years as an educator. Honestly, at the end of the semester, I felt like, wow, these students, they got it, because we always know that they are the ones that are going to be leading the future. And I really felt comfortable feeling that these students were engaged. And somehow it seems like that function of the chat and allowing them to be able to express themselves freely and to engage with the material in a way that they could not engage in a traditional classroom, I feel it was very helpful in this way. So one of the ways that we have been hearing about the intersection of education, technology, and mental health are in the many studies on the mental health effect of social media on students. These studies have been shown that students' use of social media has been resulting in increased anxiety, depression, and lower satisfaction and reduced social interactions. There's also been reports of hopelessness and loneliness amongst students. So the number of more hours a student has been spending on social media, the more they were reporting feeling depressed, anxious, stressed, and having lower self-esteem, lower self-confidence, and self-worth. What I've noticed is that over the past 2 years, students have been more open about mental health. They're talking about the services and treatments they're receiving with me and in the classroom without fear or shame. This trend, however, has been present among students of, has not been present as much among students of lower socioeconomic status. In these settings, there's been less openness about mental health challenges. Another trend I've noticed in my classes, even in this past semester, was that about 15% of class presentations were about the effects of social media on student mental health. This was a big increase from the previous years, where only about 5% of presentations were on this topic. And the students who presented on this were very passionate about this. So that was a trend I've noticed, which was interesting. So students are becoming more aware of what is happening. So technology and mental health have been connected in the increase of virtual therapy becoming the norm since March 2020. Prior to March 2020, virtual therapy, like virtual education, was at will. Counselors did it if they wanted to, or if it was a preference for them, but it became mandatory afterwards if we were going to continue providing services. The counseling profession has had to shift and implement new policies about a practice that was almost taboo previously. There were very few counselors providing virtual therapy pre-pandemic. There have been some benefits to the service delivery mode, and I will outline them in a couple slides later. One connection of mental health and technology, though, which has been due to the increased use of digital services by students and the mental health effects of technology, is the consideration of an internet-related mental health diagnosis. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5, DSM-5, is the manual that is used to diagnose mental illnesses. In the most recent version, there is a proposal to make overuse of technology a verifiable disorder. So how does this relate? The Addiction Policy Forum has simplified the definition of addiction into 4 categories that are listed here. And so in order to be classified as an addiction, whether it's a behavioral addiction or an addiction to a substance, all 4 of these categories must be present. So as I go through these categories, I'd like for you to think about how this could apply to internet use, social media use, and so on. So first, we have impaired control. This is when your intentions do not match your actions. Physical dependence is when you need more of the substance or behavior to feel satisfied, or you experience symptoms when you stop using it. That's considered withdrawal. Risky use is when you ignore the negative effect of the substance use or behavior. And social problems is when the use of the substance or the behavior causes problems in your immediate environment. So problems for you at home, at work, at school, or in the community. So have you thought of some ways that this could be applied to internet use? For example, do you know anyone who has said, I'm going to stop this game, or I'm going to stop scrolling on Facebook in about 20 minutes. I'll be done soon. And then you go back and 2 hours later, they're still there gaming or scrolling. This would be considered an example of impaired control. A recent study in 2021 has found that students are more likely to now embrace the label of addiction when it comes to their internet use. So we've talked about the role of technology in education, the effect on mental health, and the pandemic-driven effects, as well as use cases. I want to conclude with a sociological perspective of social media and technology. One sociological perspective that is used to examine society, learn more about society, is to look at the function of things. And when we do that, we will look at the manifest and intended functions of whatever we're studying. So the manifest functions is intended and the latent functions is unintended. So for example, with social media, some of the manifest functions, the reasons why it was developed, the reasons why we embrace it, are that it increased efficiency, it provided a lot of information, and was a form of socialization. So socialization, learning, rules and regulations through media has become a very predominant form of social life. Now, the latent function is that there are algorithms that are being used and that are designed with the market in mind, which is for profit. And this is wonderfully outlined in the documentary called The Social Dilemma, which talks about this sort of latent function of how social media has been operating in our lives in ways that we are not aware of. So what can we do with all of this information and all that we have discussed here today? So as an educator, adopting a flexible attitude and practice will be key in helping to improve student outcomes and engagement. Acknowledge that students have different learning styles and preferences, that not everyone is comfortable with online learning. Recognize the mental health effect of technology usage, and promote mental wellness by scheduling mental health days, including mental health resources on your learning management systems, and having guest speakers talk about mental wellness. These are some of the practices that I've used in my courses and have been helpful in destigmatizing mental health. Having regular talks, checking in with students at the beginning of classes, at the beginning of the weeks in terms of how they're doing. And also using technology to allow students to express these things in the classroom. Since students have been reluctant to speak out in class, have software or tools where they can provide their responses in a written format anonymously. This has also proved helpful. There are a lot of softwares out there that allow students to give open responses to questions that you may pose in the classroom. In your teaching or your curriculum, another way to help is to integrate technology, because students will be more engaged and also seek out instructional designers at your school, in the departments, to help you. They're there and they're really willing to help you to integrate technology in your curriculum. Teach critical thinking in your courses. Students are getting a vast amount of information and they have been aware that some of it has been labeled fake news. So teaching them how to sift through this information will help to reduce anxiety about what to believe or what not to believe. If you're teaching synchronously, try encouraging the use of the chat and have a student assistant who will help you to monitor it, set parameters around this so that nothing really wonky happens in the chat while you're presenting or delivering the course. Expression in any form is an important aspect of mental wellness. Finally, recognize and acknowledge fatigue. Fatigue in your students and fatigue in ourselves as educators. Students have an enormous workload and they feel that they often have to navigate education on their own, especially at the college or university level. Despite having resources at their fingertips, despite being told or informed about all of the resources on their campus, we still have to encourage them to use it and normalize the use of it in the success of their educational pursuits. In the area of mental health, Some technology has been helpful in improving mental wellness, such as having apps for mental wellness. There are a variety of apps out there that are able to help clients record their thoughts, record their feelings, things that you may give them for homework that they may not do. They may not put it on paper, but if they have an app that will foster that, I've used that a lot in students, especially younger students, where clients have enjoyed that and reported using it and reporting it being very helpful in documenting how they're feeling or thinking. Groups such as AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, or Narcotics Anonymous, grief groups, there are a ton of social support that can be received through online delivery. And that has been going on for quite a long time. So if you do a search for any of these, you will see that there are a ton of groups that are offered at multiple times of the day, multiple times of the week. And so this has been going on for a while, and this is something that can be used and suggested to clients, especially now that people may feel isolated. Text messaging to increase accountability has been something that I've used, which is sometimes you give clients homework and they may not remember, and you have to wait till the next session and go over it. But just sending a simple text with their permission, is it okay if I send you a text to remind you to practice self-care? And that has helped a lot with a few of my clients where they said, those reminders just really help. So that's one way technology can be useful in the counseling setting. And using videos to educate clients about things, to build their skills in techniques such as breathing techniques or meditation has also been helpful. Telling someone, hey, meditate for 10 minutes or practicing it in session may not be feasible. So providing specific videos that you've vetted yourself, you've checked it out and checked it for appropriateness for the client has been also helpful. It is one way in which technology has been helpful in the mental health setting. And so finally, as a counselor, what are some of the things that we can do? We can recognize that a comprehensive assessment will bring positive outcomes in counseling. Since internet use is a big part of our lives, we can include questions about this on our assessment for both children and adults. A client may report having insomnia, but if we never ask about their use of technology at the beginning, when you first meet them, it may take a while to connect this insomnia to staying up late to use the internet. Psychoeducation is also a very significant part of counseling services. So educating students and parents on how to use it responsibly to enhance mental wellness are some ways that we can address the effects of technology on mental health. Stay current on trends and information on the effect of technology on mental health. In The Social Dilemma, one of the presenters made a critical statement about the effect of technology on brain function. They stated that our brains are operating on a 100 million-year-old system, and computers are operating at lightning speeds ahead of it. And so there's a gap that has not been bridged. So you have two systems of two different rates that are interacting in very intricate ways. And that may be part of why they are colliding and we are experiencing these negative effects on mental health. So finally, as a counselor, take time for yourself, take sabbaticals. Enlist the colleagues to see your clients while you are taking this break to care for yourself and improve your mental wellness. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to this discussion of how education, mental health, and technology have intersected and will continue to intersect in our lives in some ways that which we can use technology to our benefit in the classroom and in the counseling setting.